Chris, my friend, welcome to Take It to the Max. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. It's a pleasure and grateful for the opportunity to have a long form conversation with you.
The pleasure is all mine. Let me properly introduce you. You are Chris Burks here with Zitro. You are the head of growth there. How long have you been with Zitro?
Almost a year now. So very exciting.
Okay.
And yeah, prior to it, to give a little background. So, I started my career at Apple. I was very fortunate to enter tech very early in my career and then jumped around to this is actually my fifth startup. Somebody pointed that out to me the other day. I said, no, it's not. I haven't done that many. And then I counted. I said, oh my gosh, yeah. This is really the fifth one I've been a part of. I spent time
Wow.
on the broker side in the mortgage industry. So, I have a deep understanding, and obviously I'm no like expert compared to some of the folks who've been around for quite some time. But it's something that I'm deeply interested in and passionate about. And then you put that in conjunction with fintech and the emergent technology with AI. And then I also at one point started another company that was totally outside my realm of experience with it was in the music industry. I have a couple of friends that I grew up with. They're career musicians, and so they wanted to do a licensing business and do it through technology. And at any rate, we had to pivot because it happened during the pandemic when we launched our business. But we took that, and then those both of them were able to win Grammys for their work. So it
Get
was a
out of
very
here.
yeah, it was a really exciting journey and something that I wasn't expecting in my career. But you never know where things are going to take you at the end of the day.
You are not wrong. That is so cool. And five startups, I mean, that does make you an expert in this field for sure.
I don't know. We'll see, I guess, in this conversation. Let's
I think you're going to be fine. I think you'll be fine. Give me an overview of Zitro, though, for those who aren't familiar with it. Tell me a little more about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to. So, what Zitro is a mortgage technology platform at the end of the day, and we built it primarily to enable loan originators. So, if you're a broker, if you're independent, say you work under a broker, it doesn't really matter where you fall in the ecosystem. We also, help out wholesalers and lenders. We have a pricing engine we built ourselves. And then we just have so many features in there where you can leverage it to make your life easier. And a lot of that has come from we're very fortunate to have a visionary CEO, Bo-Chen Wang. I recommend everybody connect with him on LinkedIn. But yeah, he's got this unbelievable path forward, and it's what drew me to joining Zitro and hearing his vision. And I think we share that because for myself, I went through it on an individual basis to say, here are the things that drove me crazy every day when I was doing loans. We can solve for all of this, and the great news is we're all experiencing this time together where we're seeing this technology, particularly with AI, and there's a litany of applications for it. But we've taken that and applied it to the loan process, and I think it accomplishes, multiple facets. One being, okay, if you're an originator, you get your time back at the end of the day. You don't have to go through these manual redundancies that typically present themselves throughout the process. And then in addition to that, we took it on to say, okay, let's be empathetic to the home buyer as well. This
Mm.
experience creates a lot of tension and anxiety. We can make this far more transparent. So we have a borrower facing portal where if you're my loan officer, I'm the home buyer, I can log in at any time and see, okay, here's what I need to do. Here's the milestones that I've achieved thus far. Say you need certain documentation from me, I can upload it. And, from a security standpoint too, everything's AWS on the AWS cloud, and then we're SOC 2 certified. So, we
Wow.
understand that that's paramount, especially to this industry because we're just collecting the most sensitive information from the consumer. But in terms of the tools, I mean, like I mentioned, pricing engine, you have a digital 1003 with a ton of tools in there, DTI calculator. We did a qualified income calculator as well. So you can upload your home buyer's documents into the system. They can do it themselves. And then you can immediately, using optical character recognition, machine learning, to say, here's the qualified income for the loan. So we've taken away that redundancy, automatically collect the conditions from the borrower, review it from AI. On average, we're seeing folks access by 20%, pre-qualified 2.5 times faster, 90% plus application completion rates. I mean, you're getting your time back at the end of the day, and that's our goal, is to
That's
just create.
huge. That's huge. 90% application completion rate.
Yeah, and what we did there was, instead of, okay, if I'm a home buyer, I see a 1003, I don't know what I need to fill out or where. I mean, it's almost, foreign language. And so we took all the information that you have to gather and distilled it into just 6 simple steps and grouped it by categories so that, what we see from the home buyer end is, okay, you're focused on a certain aspect of your borrower profile at the end of the day. Here's all the information that you need to input. It's very friendly in terms of the language that we're using to collect that information. And then on the back end, then we're mapping that through natural language processing directly to a digital 1003 so the loan officer is notified immediately. They have a real-time view into the borrower's process as well. So if somebody gets stuck, perfect. There's an opportunity to reach out and usher this loan along. And so, we've just seen it's really achieving unbelievable results. And, I'll say this as a kind of user success story, as we had a broker come on board and they admitted to me, they said, look, we're only getting about 3 to 4 applications per month submitted on our website. And, they were using a different process. So they implemented our application flow. And in the first week, got 15 brand new applications. And he thought I was inputting that myself as test application. I said, no, these are real people. You have a home buyer market that wants this digitization of the mortgage industry. They're out there. They want to do it. They're sitting at home on their couch in their pajamas in the middle of the night. Now they can do it. There's no barrier between, oh, I've got to wait for my loan officer to wake up or return my call. It's all right there for you.
I think you're right. I think that there is that element that is shifting in the consumer base. But I love that you also mentioned that because there are these different touch points that are occurring throughout that the LO can basically supervise, it does create those points of contact where they can reach out and say, hey, I noticed that it looks like you took a little extra time to get to this element of it. How can I help you with that? What can I answer for you about that? And it really does give another opportunity for the LO to set themselves apart as an expert in the space and bring up kind of that sense of connection
Yeah.
with your borrower. So, again, it's just another fantastic example of how technology really can make your life easier if you're implementing it properly. I know that we talked about this just kind of briefly in our Max Convo conversation, but why do you think so many people are so resistant to change, to taking on new technology, to the implementation of it? What do you think is driving their hesitancy, and how do you think you can move past that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, there's 2 components. Is one, we're all human, and so our human condition is to stick with what works. So there's that component of it. And then I mentioned as well, I think there's 2 other pieces of workflow inertia. So I've learned how to do something a specific way, and maybe it's working. But I'm not, maybe I haven't opened my viewpoint to say, is there a better way to do it? And I think, in the time that we're living in, yes, there always is. And technology comes at us fast. The world is changing quickly in very exciting ways. And so it's, adopting that growth mindset, I think, for all of us to say, okay, how can I improve myself? How can, I offer my homebuyers a better experience at the end of the day? And you touched on this in your response, but the human element is crucially important. And so we don't want to take that away at all. We want to
Right.
empower folks to then have that opportunity to apply that component of it. But then on the back end, okay, yeah, all of the remedial tasks that you don't want to necessarily, you're not excited about, we can do that. And that's all through, artificial intelligence. We have a large language model, Guideline GPT, which takes all the selling guidelines. You can talk to it like a chat GPT, or you can take an entire scenario and say, hey, they've got this much down payment. Here's LTV, here's FICO scores, here's income, here's the location they're looking, and say, is this loan doable based on this guideline? And it'll give you a step-by-step output to say, yes, here's what you can do. Here are the next steps you need to take. Here's the documentation you need to collect, so on and so forth. And I think that's really empowering, not just from, the technology standpoint, but it allows me then, if I have somebody on the phone, I can answer your question right now, instantly. I don't have to call you back. I don't have to wait until I search through the guideline manually. I remember doing that myself, and
Right.
never fun. So yeah, there's a ton of other things I could go into, but I think it's that, just opening our minds to say, are there better ways? I'll answer and say, yes, there are. And we're here to help folks and help people learn and step into this next iteration of the mortgage industry.
I want to go back to Guideline GPT because I think that that is a differentiating factor from you versus some of the other competition of yours that I've seen out there. This really is a phenomenal asset that you've come up with.
Yeah.
So, again, you just explained it perfectly of being able to jump in there, put different loan scenarios in, getting guidelines back. Where else do you kind of see that evolving in the future? How else do you, I mean, without maybe giving away too much, but what evolutions do you see for that?
Yeah, so there's two really exciting developments that we have. One of them is live right now. So, in addition to being able to search conventional guidelines, Fannie, Freddie, VA, USDA, FHA, we've also enabled it for non-QM programs. So,
Wow.
you see a lot more folks these days coming through the pipeline, and they have a very specific scenario where, okay, maybe they don't qualify for a GSE. That's okay. Now you have this ability, and we built out a pricing engine dedicated to non-QM products. And in there, you can pull up the guideline for that particular product. And same deal, you can ask it questions and say, hey, I've never done a DSCR loan before. Here's my scenario that my investor or buyer has come across the table with. Is this doable compared to the guideline? It'll give a real-time answer and say, yeah, here's minimum LTV, here's minimum FICO or max LTV, and it'll give you all the parameters for the product itself, and then as well, give you next steps in terms of here's how to move this through the process. Internally, what we're working on as well is a voice-enabled version of it, so that you can talk to it on your phone, or your computer, whatever medium you want to access it through, but that you can literally talk to it just like we are today, and say, hey, look, this is my question. I need an answer, and it'll give that answer in real time to you. So I think
That
that's really
is
exciting.
unreal to have basically a guideline expert in your pocket. Phenomenal. That is so, so cool. I do wonder, and I think what you're accomplishing is really going to help with this. So many people, because the market has been in a bit of a rough patch for so long, I do think right now is the time for LOs to be differentiating, where they really should be diversifying, getting out there, figuring out how else they can expand their knowledge base, which will differentiate them from their competition. So many people are reluctant to do that though, because if they've never done a non-QM loan or they haven't worked with investors in the past, there is that hesitancy and I think a natural fear of not wanting to look like a moron in front of your client. So
Yeah.
to have a resource like this is huge. That is such an incredible thing. What else do you think LOs can be doing with Zitro that is going to help to set them apart additionally from their competition?
Yeah, so I think in one we touched on it previously, but it's the transparency for the home buyer. And I've gotten this feedback from folks that aren't necessarily our users, right? They're folks who are buying homes, and they're saying, "Yeah, I went through this process. It seemed very antiquated. That I'm emailing back and forth, or I have to call every time I want a status update." And now, with what we're doing is to say, here, log in. You'll know immediately what steps you need to take if there's any action that's falling on your desk, so that you can move the process along. Because at the end of the day, when we're buying homes, what do we want? We want the keys to the house, so that we can start moving in and reach those milestones and get the loan completed, and yeah, close the deal. So I think that's a huge one. We've also, from our standpoint, we saw, okay, for most of us on the originator side, we're great salespeople. However, marketing can be a challenge at times. And so how do I get myself out there? How do I let people know that my services are available? And so we built out a personal site for every single user that comes on, where you upload your profile picture, fill out some information about yourself, name, NMLS. You can link all your social. We give free widgets like an affordability calculator, rate quote, all that good stuff. And then that's a great landing point for the home buyer to then access. Then we took an additional step, because I think one of the challenges right now, which you mentioned in the industry, the conditions haven't been ideal for all of us. So we said, okay, what if we built something that's consumer driven? So at the end of the day, the home buyer can come on and find, I don't know who to work with. I'm not sure who does mortgage. I don't have a friend that I can go to refer me to somebody. And so we built out a tool that allows the home buyer now to come and search for a loan originator, see what rates they might be able to offer for their particular scenario, and then immediately connect. And I think, that's a huge component, because like you mentioned, there is this home buyer market. They are out there. People are still moving and looking to take action. So it's another access point to really accelerate that process.
I have to think too, from the ops side of things, this is improving ops teams' lives so much to be able to jump in, actually see where everything is at. And I think from a communication standpoint, that has to be improving any type of consumer complaint that people were getting of maybe not hearing from their LO, not feeling like they were in touch or had that proper communication with them. Something like this definitely is going to clear that up. That in and of itself is going to give LOs back time. And time really is your most valuable commodity. It's something that we only get so much of. Why not do what we can to utilize it in the best possible way? I think that that is a phenomenal feature of it. Where do you see technology going over the next couple of years, and how do you see Zitro keeping up with that in the mortgage space?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something I'm really excited about. Going back is when I was doing loans myself, there weren't these tools available to me. So a lot of it was this manual process, and what I'm really encouraged by is to see this openness to, okay, like AI, for example. It was a buzzword for a lot of years, but now we're seeing it implemented at scale, and folks who are using it, I mean, we talked about this previously just offline, but there's a huge advantage that we can gain. And I think there's this misnomer where we go, oh, AI is going to take my job. It won't. At the end
No.
of the day, we're creative. We're that human element is crucial, particularly in the mortgage industry. So I think it doesn't come down to, oh, is AI going to take my job? No, but somebody who's using AI and leveraging it efficiently could. And so, there's this opportunity now for all of us to say, let's step into the future, not only with this emergent technology with AI, but then from my standpoint, I think there's a huge opportunity, in addition to it, that, we're seeing digital currency being more widely adopted, and then blockchain
Mm.
technology. I think these are the next steps in the process, particularly because it serves the home buyer, and it'll make this process, my vision is almost as simple as filling out a application for a credit card, where I can go and get my house and everything's done in a week or less. We're not there yet, but it's really exciting to see all this unfold in real time and to be a part of it at Zitro, because we took, the long hard road of saying, yeah, we understand this technology. We know how to apply it specifically to the mortgage industry. Let's do it, and let's show people that this is real. This is something that's happening right now today. And I encourage folks to give a look, even if it's not Zitro, to play with, like we mentioned, large language models like ChatGPT or Claude, Perplexity. Um, it's life changing, and
It is. It's
I
worth the exploration for sure.
right. And we talked about this. I had this my neighbor, he's a general contractor, and so he doesn't really use technology. He's out there building homes at the end of the day. And I was telling him, oh yeah, you got to try ChatGPT, for example. I know Zitro is not for you because you're not in the mortgage business, but give it a look and see what it does. And he told me he came back a couple of weeks ago. He said, yeah, I typed out this email to one of my clients. I ran it through ChatGPT. It was so much better than what I had written. So, it's that first step that all of us have to take, that exploratory journey, and it's really rewarding. at the end of the day.
It really is. And I think you're so right. I think that that should be the first step for people who are apprehensive. Jump into chat and just type something in there. It doesn't matter what it is. You'll see how quickly you can leverage it to your benefit. And then the next thing you know, you're going to be using it in your everyday life. There are two follow-ups that I want to take you down because you actually led into one of my questions. So I just returned from the ICE technology convention expo in Las Vegas. And at one of the dinners I was at, my dear friend Kobe asked the group, how quickly in the next 5 years do you think mortgages will be closing? And I want to ask you the same thing. How quickly in the next 5 years do
Yeah.
you think a purchase, let's clarify, a purchase can
Yeah.
close?
I mean, so yeah, I think worst case scenario, you're looking at probably 15 days, so about 2 weeks with all the technology we can apply. And I mean, that's if everything goes wrong, right? You're
Right,
just
right.
going, oh my gosh, nothing's going right. I think that can even be distilled into, I mean, a week, maybe less than a week. And that's what's really exciting about all this is, being on the front end of this, I'll call it almost a revolution, even though that's kind of a, you know, everybody's using
It
that
feels
term.
like a weighted word, but it's not. It is a revolution.
Yeah, and it's really exciting because I think, like we addressed earlier, there is this hesitancy and it's, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know." But then you see it in action and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is a game changer." And, you know, I love these stories because, we had a broker who, I mean, she's amazing. She does all of her loans by herself. She wants to build out her team, more robustly and had to downsize due to the market conditions. But she's going, look, I'm processing all my own loans. I'm doing it in a very manual way. And so I just showed her, I said, listen, I just want to show you what's out there and what's available and what you can use. And, she came back and was like, oh my gosh, how do I sign up today? I said, good news. Like we have a free version of it so you can get right on board. And then, we can offer more features, blah, 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 blah. But it was really exciting to see that happen in real time and experience it with her, to just see that, oh my gosh, there's a better way. And so I think we're all headed there, and there are other industry players out there who are pushing the envelope as well. And so it's exciting times. I mean, I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'm really excited, especially from the home buyer point of view, to just say, hey, you know, and I'll also mention that you have these groups like the younger millennials and Gen Z who are kind of trapped right now because of affordability issues. And as soon as these market conditions start to alleviate, which I'm very optimistic, I think they will. We're seeing it already with rates coming down. Once those markets come unlocked, they're technology driven, these groups. And so the digitization of the mortgage process, it's going to benefit everybody at the end of the day. So it's extremely exciting to see it happen in real time.
Chris, I think you a little bit just read my mind because that was my next question was how have you seen customer behavior change and how do you anticipate it continuing to change with the advancement in technology and the overall implementation and integration of AI in so much of what we're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think what we're already seeing, particularly, I'll speak to our platform just because I have intimate knowledge there, but it's the pull through that folks have on that initial touch point just to say, whoa, this is way different from, even if they're an experienced home buyer, to say this is way easier than what I've had to do in the past. And that's the goal is you want to make everybody's lives easier and give them that, I'll use a colloquialism we used at Apple, but that surprise and delight. And
Uh,
it's just, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I could do this way. This is really great. And so, especially from the home buyer perspective, you see folks have this want, to adopt technology, particularly from that standpoint. So then I think the burden of responsibility then falls on us mortgage professionals to say, well, we need to offer these tools to these groups who are looking to use them. And the good news is Zitro's out there, and so are other folks who are, pioneering this effort. And it's again, I'm really happy to be a part of it. It's really fun.
Early adoption really is going to be key for so many LOs. When when this time comes, because you're right, there will be this pent-up demand that is coming, and they are going to expect you to be technologically savvy because that's what they are. It is the millennials, it is the Gen Zers, and we have to make sure that we're accommodating and that we are adapting to what they want. So I think you're spot on, and Zitro is definitely at the forefront of these advancements. So kudos to you. You're doing a phenomenal job. I know that we're a little pressed for time, but I want to make sure that we get a couple of good wrap up questions in here. What is the best piece of professional advice that you've ever received?
That's a great question, and it's one that there's so many that I think all of us get over the years, but one that's always stuck with me is, for me, especially early in my career, I had this tendency to attach myself to, oh, I want to accomplish this goal, or here's something I want to achieve. And the advice I got was to not necessarily chase, these defined goals, but to chase a version of ourselves, and to say, okay, in 10 years from now, who do I want to be? What does that person do? What are the actions that they would be taking right now? What would they absolutely not tolerate? What are the strategies they're employing? And for me, it's been extremely powerful because it goes, oh, well, here's who I want to be, and I can start doing this today. Like, I don't have to necessarily wait 10 years, but it's that old adage of, how do you eat the elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And so, I think that's really helped just for me individually, progression. And for all of us, it's this evolution of ourselves and growth. And, now we're in an opportunity where technology is coming to the forefront, particularly in the mortgage industry. So, here's another opportunity to step into the future. So that was always something that stuck with me. Yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic. What are you a goal setter by nature? Like, is
Yes.
that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've talked about this because we have the shared interest in sports, and particularly basketball. And so, I played sports. I was coaching for a long time. So, goals are paramount at the end of the day. And one of the things I always would teach the kids that I would coach, and I got this from my uncle who was he played water polo in the Olympics, but he always said the 5 Ps, and proper preparation prevents poor performance. And so I think
Ooh,
that's
that is good.
yeah, yeah, I like alliteration as well at the end of the day, so
That
it's
is
a good one.
good.
You know
That is good. I know I can't believe that we're running out of time and we didn't even have time to get into basketball. I'm gonna have to have you back because that for me is, even more exciting than the mortgage industry. And I really love this industry. So that tells you how much I really love basketball. But we'll save that for the next one. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, great question. So, we're connected on LinkedIn, so I encourage folks to go out there. You'll find me. Like I said, we share that mutual connection, so I'm very gettable there. You can always reach out to me via email, Chris@Zitro. It's spelled Zeitro.com. If you want to give me a call, 650-540-3500 goes direct to me. And then I encourage folks who are curious, visit the Zitro site, Zitro.com, Zeitro. And then you can also book a demo if you want to look more. And the good news is that'll come direct to me. So I'm happy to show people what we've built and show how it can enable their workflow.
Amazing. I actually jumped on there last night and played around with it myself just a little bit just to see exactly how it operated, and it's incredible. It is incredible. So I highly recommend people do that. Any final thoughts, key takeaways, anything else that you want to touch on?
I'll say thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad we connected. One of the things that I think it parses back to the business advice or professional development, but networking's huge, especially in our industry. It's all relationship based, and I remember we had a conversation in Connecticut earlier in the year, which led to this right here. So, I'll say networking, go out and meet people, make friends. It's really advantageous, and then give technology a shot. See what you can do with it and see what works for you. We're here to help with that. And then, like we mentioned earlier, even if it's just hopping on Chat GPT and giving it a try for yourself, the good news is, for the most part, this technology is free and accessible to all of us. So, yeah, the future's here.
I love that. Perfect. Perfect final thoughts, Chris. That was phenomenal. Thank you again so much for being here. You are an amazing person. You are so likable and so easy to connect with. So I highly, highly recommend people reach out to you and at least get to see what Zitro offers. I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to be here with me today. So thank you, my friend, for taking it to the max.
Thanks, LaDonna.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Bye-bye.